It's safe to say that WWE failed the Wyatt Six experiment. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that they paired him against one Chad Gable back in the mid-2024. And at the time, I did not make a video on it, but I was saying to myself, this is not going to work at all. People are not going to be fully invested into this. And it's because a lot of this goes back to the fact that Chad Gable was one of the most over superstars in 2024, and a lot of people wanted to see him be the one to dethrone Gunther at WrestleMania, but instead we got Sami Zayn. And mind you, I love Sami Zayn getting the W because Sami Zayn deserved it after everything he went through with the whole Bloodline storyline, the fact that he was one of the people that really kept that whole storyline afloat, but there were probably a lot more people invested in Chad Gable than there were in Sami Zayn. But it looked like WWE wasn't done with Chad Gable just yet because they gave him this whole storyline with Alpha Academy that sadly just took way too long. It would lead to him getting a triple threat match at Clash of the Castle to potentially get the IC title, but during this match, we also wanted to see one Otis turn because of how much people love Otis. Well, Otis finally did turn, but sadly it cost one Chad Gable the IC title, and this is just where everything started to go downhill for Chad Gable. That also started affecting the Wyatt Six storyline because we all knew that Bo Dallas and Wyatt Six were going to be put over American Made, which for a lot of people left a sour taste in their mouth because while they did love Bo Dallas and Wyatt Six, they also hated the fact that it was basically going to be the end of Chad Gable. There was still an inkling of hope though, but the second issue falls in the fact that you didn't put it at a big PLE, which the biggest one coming up at the time was SummerSlam. Now I know Triple H loved to stick to his 5-card matches for his PLEs, but I think this is one of the times where he probably should have went 6 or 7 and had this match be there so people get more invested into it and believe that, okay, you know what, Chad Gable is not in these big title pictures, but he's in a big storyline and it's on the biggest PLE of the year, or at least second biggest PLE of the year, behind one WrestleMania. Instead, you put it on the Raw after SummerSlam, which a lot of people were still invested in the storyline, but you can definitely tell that it not being on SummerSlam took a lot out of the story. And then the third and final reasoning is that Chad Gable reverted back to his old ways, which was basically being a glorified jobber. Amazing wrestler, amazing on the mic, but you just don't use him because of whatever reason. I still assume it's because he's probably just not tall enough. Had he been 6 feet, he probably would be the next Kurt Angle, which is what a lot of people thought he was going to be. Because you had all this happen, I feel like this really affected the Wyatt Six storyline. Now, we eventually did get the Wyatt Six to go against one Karrion Kross and The Miz, and while I did actually like the storyline and felt like it made one Karrion Kross a lot more likable because for the longest time he was struggling, a lot of people kind of also looked at this and said, are we trying this again with Karrion Kross? It's no offense to the Karrion Kross fans, but even I was like, dude, we are trying every single thing to make this guy as over as possible. Why do you keep just pushing him in our faces? If we don't like the guy, we just don't like the guy. While a lot of the callbacks were cool because we know Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt's whole thing with Paul Ellering, then we seen The Miz getting kidnapped, very reminiscent of when Dexter Lumis was kidnapping The Miz. Then we seen Bo Dallas and The Miz together, obviously reminiscent of Miz when he had the B team with him and all that stuff. Because a lot of these storylines weren't that big, especially the fact that Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas's ties to Paul Ellering were never really highlighted as much, it just didn't hit for a lot of people. And honestly, I don't even know where this storyline is heading to. It seems like it kind of just fell flat on its face. I thought Karrion Kross and them were going to have a lot bigger feud with these guys, maybe have it happen at a PLE, but once again, it didn't happen at a PLE. Like, it almost feels like they're treating the Wyatt Six like they're glorified jobbers, and for a large part of this group, that's what they were for most of their careers, was glorified jobbers. The only one you could really say wasn't was Eric Rowan. That's because he was in the Wyatt Six, one of the most over factions in the early 2010s. And I guess you could also say Nikki as well, but Nikki had like one title run that was like a month long, and honestly, she was very over as Nikki ASH, but still, for the most part, I think even people around that time still viewed her as a glorified jobber that's just getting a shot because of how over she was. Aside from the feuds, though, I feel like the storylines have also fallen flat because, like I said earlier with the whole Chad Gable thing, you had that storyline, but then you did nothing afterwards. Like, we don't see any of the lasting effects of that storyline. We don't even hear mention of the Wyatt Six really attacking Chad Gable and them. We don't see Chad Gable having any kind of like PTSD from that whole attack. It's really also a marketing issue because you don't hear any commentators talking about the Wyatt Six when they're not there. You don't hear other wrestlers talking about the Wyatt Six when they're not there. Like, nobody's showing an actual fear for this group on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown. So while not having them be there every single Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown and having them only there for specific storylines sounded great on paper, they just didn't execute it very well, and that took away a lot of the creepiness and the scariness of this group. It does suck too, because I feel like for WWE to be at its best, you need all the elements. You need the top stars, you need the amazing wrestlers, you need the jobbers that are absolutely funny, and you also need the creepy aspect. You had it with early Undertaker, you had it with Boogeyman, you had it with the Wyatt family, and the Wyatt Six could have been that next big one, but sadly, it just was not executed very well. But hey, look, this is just my opinion though. Y'all go ahead and let me know down below. How do you feel about the whole Wyatt Six storyline? Do y'all feel that WWE has already failed them, or do you think that it's just been an extremely slow burn and we got to give it more time? And if you haven't already, make sure you do like and follow for more.